Rollins, France, and I'm going to react to a video from King Richez, Michael King, Richez Michael, Richez Michael King, Michael King Richez, King Richez Michael, whatever you be calling your name yourself these days. No, Michael King, King Richez, and he launched a very good debate talking about whether or not American women have a bad influence on women generally all around the world. The exact title of his debate was, do American women have a bad influence on women around the world? It was an 8-minute video, and Rollins France is going to walk alongside King Richez and the caller who made the call and break it down with you. Would you agree? Let Rollins France know at the end. The first thing I'd like to say is, I myself have not dated American women. I myself have not lived in America, like has King Richez. Wherefore, my observations have to be based on objective analysis, based on what I see, what I have seen, and what I continue to see. So, let's get cracking.
I guess you could call it the dating market, the UK compared to the US. From my observation, I feel like the market, as much as there's similarities, I feel like it's very different compared to America. And I don't know if you would agree, or would you say it's somewhat...
I'm a guy that's dated American girls. I've been out there, I've had relationships, all of that, yeah?
So, Michael King Richez is a guy who's dated American women. He's lived in the state of North Carolina. He's gone to university over there, or college as they call it. So he is apt to providing a great analysis anent to this issue. Let's see what he has to say.
Levels, like the levels of ratchetness that you will see in America is not the same as you would see in the UK. The UK has ratchetness, but it's not the same intensity. Do you get what I'm saying?
He's absolutely right. The levels of ratchet behaviour amongst American women is, on the whole, more pronounced, more pertinent in the United States as opposed to women over here in Britain. That's true. That's true.
These girls that come out and say all these crazy things, oh, I need a guy that's gonna buy me a Birkin bag and all of this stuff. Like, you don't really hear English, like, black girls or girls in England talking to that extent. They may think that they want this and that, or they want a guy that's gonna spend money on them, but they're not gonna be so extreme with it.
For my understanding, stereotypes exist for a reason. And ratchetness, being ratchet, is a stereotype attributed to a certain class of American women. On a personality level, both women vary. American women, American girls tend to be more direct. They tend to lionize their freedom of right to speak. They tend to speak first and ask questions later. You have to remember, America is a younger nation, 1776, so they're more curious to explore the world and to delve into people's affairs, but with that they bring their own prejudices. Whereas the Brits and British women are much more reserved, because they live in a much more reserved society. The Brits have a culture of having a stiff upper lip. The Brits have a culture of not rocking the boat. The Brits have a culture of following traditions. And when you're living in a more mature nation, an older nation, because Great Britain is a much older nation as compared to the United States, people tend to integrate themselves into the values held by the elders of that nation, and into this class-based society which we in Britain live in, where women are expected to respect old traditions and expected to respect traditions which highlight and separate class status. So, in Britain, you get terms such as bow to the king. You get actions such as curtsy. You get terms such as God save the Queen, have a stiff upper lip, Your Royal Highness, His Highness, Your Majesty, Her Majesty. You even get prisons named after the Queen, Her Majesty's Prison. Upper class, aristocracy. Within these traditional British culture, British women grow up in. So they're expected to operate and behave in a certain way. Which means if they don't operate in that certain way, they can get ostracized very quickly in society. Basically, ratchetness is not tolerated in Britain at certain classes. Let's continue.
Whereas I feel like American women are more extreme in your face, and that's why I think a lot of times, like a lot of the American guys, they're so interested by red pill, you know, female nature.
Yep, very good point. Earlier, Michael King Richez talked about Birkin bags, and the idea of this Hermes Birkin bag, because I used to work in a very luxury store in Southwest London, is born out of Washington Consensus extreme capitalism, whereby everything in America is approached out of money. Jaywalking laws, for example, in America, were brought in to stop people getting hit by cars and suing the driver who knocked them over. The explosion of OnlyFans, the explosion of prawn, shout out to Coach Greg Adams, all done with the aim of taking money out of the hands of men and putting it into the hands of women. And American women approach relationships based on capitalistic monetary gains. Britain is less capitalistic than the United States. We're not so dogmatic and Washington Consensus with our capitalism. Wherefore, as there is this less extreme model of capitalism in Britain, there isn't so much an extreme demand placed on men. You get the feeling that with British women operating under a fully functional welfare state, a welfare state that is not as good as France or as Germany, but is still very good, this yearning to exploit men financially is not as pertinent in the United States, in Britain, amongst British girls, as it is in American women. And the divorce stats, they bear that. The divorce stats in America in 2020 was 45.1%. 45.1% of marriages in America in 2020 ended in divorce. The divorce stats in Britain in 2015, I couldn't find 2020 stats, in 2015 was 40.91%. 40.91%, which means there's a higher divorce rate in America as opposed to Britain. That means, of course, that in the United States, all states recognize no-fault divorce. All states recognize no-fault divorce, and this being so, it means that money and financial status of the man is vital to the lady. This is known all around the world. Nevertheless, when you're surrounded by extreme capitalism that American girls grow up in, the lady in America is going to lionize the aspects of money and finances in a relationship more so than the British woman, the average British woman. So when finances and money breaks down, divorce is more likely to occur because those things were more valued by American women as opposed to British women. And American women, they express it openly in their raps, through their rap, in their media, in their talk shows. Whereas the average Brit, who is much more mealy-mouthed, if does so following the American model.
That's why they're so on it. That's why the market is so kind of US orientated, because they're in Babylon, bruv.
Yep.
They're in Babylon, bruv. That's the way I look at America. It's Babylon.
No, don't cap.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but the UK is like the younger brother trying to be like the older brother.
Yeah. He's right there. The American men's red pill movement has exploded to many parts of the Western world. But exactly that, the red pill, black pill movement emanated from the United States. And it emanated from the frustrations that men over there were having anent to marriage. Someone like Coach Greg Adams, someone like Better Bachelor. The frustrations that American men were having anent to dating. Someone like Steph is Cold, someone like Myron Gaines and Walter from Fresh and Fit. It emanated from the frustrations that American men were having anent to women using men for money, resources, energy and time. Such as Donovan Sharp, he got used. And it emanated from the horrible child support laws, which took money directly from the man's pocket into the woman's pocket, which R.I.P. Kevin Samuels talked about. The red pill movement cannot emerge if relationships were not in the toilet. And what's making them go into the toilet was the frustrations men were feeling in America because American women were divorcing them heavily, were using them for money, were encouraging them to marry and then will break up the marriage 7 years down the line, as Coach Greg Adams found out. Yep.
Say that, the UK girls are imitating the American girls, but the American girls are just being themselves.
Yep.
That's the irony.
So the caller said UK
obviously,
girls
to your point,
are imitating,
like you said, it's not the UK into
American
the intensity
American
of
girls.
the American girls, but the American girls are just being themselves because they're not watching what the UK girls are doing. So from the UK girls, it's just all It's just.
You wanna know why?
Fake, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, what you said absolutely makes sense. And the reason why, now I know people are not gonna like what I'm saying, but this is true. The culture that a lot of the Americans have, the black Americans have, is what they manage to create themselves from what.
The imitation thing is born out of a lack of class when it relates to money. And in America, if you have money, you can get to the top of society. You can get to the top of society. Money literally is a ladder taking you to the top of society. Your class or your etiquette matters little. Donald Trump, example. Kim Kardashian, example. Hillary Clinton, example. Floyd Money Mayweather, example. Paris Hilton, example. Cardi B, an example. Nicki Minaj, Amber Heard. These lot got to the top of their societies, even though they may have lacked the requisite class, but money made them powerful. Not so much their behaviour, the money. The money. In Britain, that's not the case. Britain, your money cannot get you to the top of society because there's a strict class system. So when British girls try to imitate American girls with the ratchetness and the bad behaviour and the bad influence, it is limiting to them. Because you cannot be Cardi B and marry someone like Prince Harry. You cannot be Amber Heard or Paris Hilton and marry Prince William or David Beckham. Because the class system is more important. And subconsciously, I think British women know this. British women know this. Which is why someone like Colleen Rooney or Jade Goody would not even try their luck. would not even try their luck for David Beckham. But in America, someone like a Cardi B would openly try to date a Barack Obama. It might not work, but it's possible. Stranger things have happened.
It was allowed to have by the white people, by the oppressors. Do you get what I'm saying? Whereas blacks in the UK, we usually know where we come from, like.
Yeah.
So that's the disconnect. So when you see the black girls in the UK imitate the American girls, and the American girls are just being themselves, you're spot on, bruv. You're spot on. And it's
yes, blacks in the UK and the blacks in France and the blacks in Belgium, they know where they come from. They know where they come from and are largely safeguarded in it. They know that they're Nigerian. They know that they're Ghanaian. They know that they're from Sierra Leone. In France, the black girls know they're from Mali. They know they're from Senegal. They know they're from the Democratic Republic of Congo, or Congo Brazzaville, or Zaire, to give his former name. They know that they're from Cameroon, or Cote d'Ivoire, or Guinea, like Paul Pogba, or Gabon, like Aubameyang. They safeguard in it and move around in their white lands, in France, in Belgium, in Britain, but they still, to a large degree, hold the culture of their parents, their African culture, their heritage, their knowledge of their heritage. America is a mishmash of nations and personalities put together in one big melting pot. The Italians in Chicago, the Irish in Massachusetts, the Haitians in LA, the Cuban Hispanics in Florida, the Latinos in Texas, the Latinos in California, especially South California, San Diego, for example. But crucially, the blacks in America, and this includes the black girls in America, don't know where they come from. They don't know where they come from. Their history has been erased by force. So within that, the black girls in America have created their own subculture, as spoken by Richez Clarwin and Lloyd Oylin, criminology, sociology. And their own subculture, added with the powerful media, is seen as symbolic of who they are. And in that interaction, being more hyped up, they showcase elements of criminality. They showcase gang culture. They showcase getting money fast. They're showcasing getting their bag and running. Selling peace leave, WAP. I ain't want no scrub. Pay me my bills. Can you pay my bills? Looking as N-word, Nicki Minaj. My anaconda. That's the culture that they've created. They needed to create that because their true heritage, their true history has been wiped out. They don't know where they come from. Now they're in America. They embrace the culture that has been created by them, but then bastardized by dark forces from above.
Even just the UK girls, you hear girls in Africa trying to put an American accent. You know, yeah, girl, I was doing girl, and it's like, bro, it's so cringe, bro. Like, bro, you are trying to copy something which is actually not good. They're trying to copy something that they didn't really have a choice in being that. They are just that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what, you're choosing to emulate that when you've got your own thing which is actually traditional and actually more functional. Do you know what I'm saying? But the internet, movies, music is all influence all over the world, bro.
And that's the American media. American music, American TV, the American dress style, drop downs, Jordans, baseball caps to the side. Look, even I'm wearing it. Shirts like this, LA, TV shows like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or Power, especially music. It's powerful because the American media has the most money and has the most power in the world. They shape the minds of billions, from Power Rangers to Fresh Prince to Sex and the City, Friends, City Guys, Looney Tunes, Walt Disney, Marvel, Captain America. Everyone everywhere in the world, not literally, metaphorically speaking, knows about these things. The American media is so powerful, it can convince you in a war between Russia and Ukraine who to support. Because one side, apparently Russia, is the bad guy, but the other side, Ukraine, are the good guys. That's how powerful the American media are. And when black people, especially black women, have these thoughts drilled into their head every day by powerful American media, they try to follow it. Which is why King Richez was right when he said this American media influence is what purports women around the world to soak in that influence of American women.
Big up Fatty for the super chat. European girls are more modest. US exports toxicity. That's another thing I would say as well. And this is why a lot of Americans have a lot of like superiority complex over like us lot.
Yeah.
Because their media is exported everywhere.
Absolutely.
So that's why you will get guys
Absolutely.
like there was a guy that had a problem with me saying, "Oh, King Richez is trying to be American. I hate them immigrants. I hate them foreigners." I was like, bro, like, but you have no problem you exporting all your fucking media all over the world, trying to make everyone believe that you lot are the coolest and everyone should be like you.
Yep.
The last I checked, I see a lot of your fucking rappers and all of that come and perform in England and perform in Africa and perform all over the fucking world. You ain't got a problem for them collecting checks and shit like that.
And
like, come on, bro. Like, it's exported everywhere, bro.
Absolutely.
The only difference is you lot don't give a fuck about the rest of the world. That's what it is. That's what it boils down to. Because if you ask the average American person,
Yep.
yeah, and I'm not talking about the ones with the passport and I've travelled here, I'm talking about the typical.
Yep.
Yeah, they probably know little to nothing about the rest of the world. They only know about America. And
Absolutely. Many Americans, I would say over half, don't have the official statistics, never leave their country, never leave their continent, because America is one of two countries in the continent of North America. A holiday for an American is going from San Diego or San Francisco, California to the Bronx, New York. A holiday for an American is going from Paducah, Kentucky to Fort Lauderdale. A holiday for an American is going from Houston, Texas to Louisiana, New Orleans. They can't point other countries out on the map. They pronounce it wrong. And because they don't have passports, more importantly, they cannot take vacation leave. It's very limited in America when you're in a 9 to 5. A lot of them can't even afford to travel. When I say travel, I mean proper traveling, not going from Nebraska to to Raleigh, North Carolina.
it's not, some could say it's their fault, some could say it's not their fault.
Obviously, like, when I observe these American girls, yeah, like, obviously stripper culture, like, it's all part of the makeup of, like, how some of these girls develop their identity, innit? And I just feel like in the UK in particular, like, the way some of these girls are dressing, the way some of these girls are acting, it's almost like with the American girls, you can kind of give them the benefit of doubt, because you can say, well, this is part of your culture. I think you kind of alluded to that earlier, innit?
Yeah.
Where you're saying they've kind of developed their culture. So it's like, now that stripper culture has become more, how would I describe it? Like, it's become more mainstream, innit, in terms of how women dress, how women sexualize themselves. In America, on the grassroots, a lot of these girls have grown up in this without having public forums or public access to show that this is the lifestyle they're living. Where I feel like girls in the UK are just trying to imitate something that they're not a part of. And to my point on that,
Yeah.
and this might sound a bit
Wrap up
radical,
the point.
but girls in America are more on badness than girls in the UK. And I'm not saying it
He said girls in America are more on badness than girls in the UK. The caller will need to clarify what he means by that. Let's check the statistics. So, BMI Publishing Group, an article published by Zoya Kimitzwitz, said that more teenage girls in the US and in the UK become pregnant compared to anywhere else in the world. More teenage girls in the US and the UK become pregnant compared to any other girl or any other girl in any other country in the world. The birth rate in America is actually declining to about 56 births per 1,000, 2020. Half of what it was in the 1960s. So the birth rate in America is declining to half of what it was in the 1960s. Although teen virginity rates amongst boys is as high as ever. Teen virginity rates amongst boys is as high as ever. So that means less and less boys are having sex. And the birth rate is actually declining. Although in the UK, official national statistics from gov.co.uk points that there were 613,936 live births in England and Wales in 2020, which was actually a decrease by 4.1% from 2019. A decrease in birth rates by 4.1% from 2020 to 2019. So basically the point is, in a more sexualized society, we're in a more sexualized society, but sexual practices are still occurring outside of traditional familial relationships and familial values. So women are still having sex, but a lot of it is occurring outside of the family home, outside of traditional relationships and marriage values.
American girls are more gangster or whatever than UK girls. I'm just saying that the nature of their culture, they cut different
lifestyle, you know, just it's just more intense in America. Like the UK is just not like that. Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, even if you watch the podcast, yeah. You know, like where, like, you know, people like Fresh and Fit or Steph is Cold or me or whoever, yeah, we do these reaction videos to these crazy things that these girls say. More time, the craziest stuff is said by American chicks.
Yes, that's true. But you have to factor in, again, the culture. It's because in America, American girls and American people in general, they're obsessed with their notion of freedom and expressing that freedom. An American will open their mouth before they open their brain. And their country did fight a damn war of independence in the name of freedom. And in 1776, the birth of their nation led them to proclaim themselves as land of the free and home of the brave. Britain, a more grown-up, older nation, are less emotionally polarized. So they're more mature and they're more nuanced about how they express themselves and their desires. So, although largely we are enamored with aspects of their culture, the influence is reined in somewhat by British culture, of the stiff upper lip, of knowing your place in society, of class, of respect, and of decency. But no doubt the intensity in which American girls express their desire in men and the intensity in which they demand from their men, usually underpinned by financial demands, is part of the reason why dating in America sucks. You would have to also throw into that the educational system, because the American education system is, outside of private schools, terrible. It's terrible. And I'll say that to the ends of the earth. The American education system is terrible. If you want to know how dumb the average American is, just watch Jerry Springer. It was an outstanding debate by King Richez, and ultimately, American women have influence on women all around the world, but the worst aspects of American culture are somewhat safeguarded by the culture in which the women of the other particular countries grow up in. Likewise, women of particular other countries are not as dominated by bastardized feminism as in America, and they're not as dominated by this obsession with freedom of speech, even though what's being spoken is nonsense. Plus, the men of other cultures tend to also fight against American influence. If they're not in the pockets of them, they tend to fight against it and ensure that their culture preponderates. But no doubt, American women have or export some of the worst aspects of their nature onto the world. And inevitably, some will seep through and be absorbed by people who see that as something to strive for. And the extreme capitalism found in America has wormed its way into the minds of mainly westernized women, Western women, whereby a man's resources, attention, energy, time, and money is the primary factor into him being able to mate with the better options on the market. King Richez, brilliant debate. Rollins France.